Hello and welcome to a very special episode on Treat, the online channel for doctors by ALTERDOCTOR. And today we are here to talk about a very important event which is going to concern the future of thousands of medicos in this country. Yes, I'm talking about NEET PG. We are barely 3 weeks away and the big question is, how do I prepare in these 3 weeks? How do I answer the questions? Is there any particular strategy? And to answer these questions and much more, it is my privilege today to be joined by two personalities, Dr. Tarun Sebastian, consultant gastroenterologist from Rajgiri, Kochi, who has been through the grind of multiple postgraduate entrance exams, and to a person who needs no introduction, becoming a legend in the field of postgraduate entrance exam teaching, Dr. Rakesh Nair. Thank you both so much for joining us for this very special episode. Tarun, I would like to start off with you. You know, over the last few years, many juniors would have probably come to you and asked, how do I prepare in this last 3 weeks to 1 month before the final NEET entrance exam? But it's a very difficult question to answer because there is no one-size-fits-all answer. So what are your thoughts on this? And if you could tell us a little bit about your journey before moving on to the answer.
I did my MBBS in St. John's Medical College, followed by I did my PG in MD Medicine in Manipal, and then came back to do DM in gastroenterology and hepatology in St. John's. I have been through 3 separate entrance exams. So when I've gone through all these entrance exams, what I've understood is, so people who are preparing the entrance exam, there are 3 kinds of people. The one kind of people are one which you've all gone through, just entered internship, not getting time to study, just finish something, and you have got like 1 month to study and that's it. And it is there at your doorstep. The second group of people are those people who finished their internship, who is actually giving their first try. This is basically their first serious attempt after studying for 8 to 9 months. And the last group of people are those people who are actually faced this exam once properly with all the preparations they could, and again sitting to crack it again. So we have 3 groups of people who are actually at this cusp waiting to finish off this 3 weeks so that they can write NEET. But today we will discuss about the last 2 groups who have been properly prepared for at least 8 months to write the exam and see how it happens.
So coming to you, Dr. Rakesh, we are again thankful for having you on the show. You're one of the remarkable postgraduate entrance exam teachers. Before we go into answering some of the questions, just would like to know, how was the situation when you were taking a postgraduate entrance exams, and what was the competition that you had to face?
So hi guys, and thank you for the question. Let me just go back. Me and Tarun have actually joined the our MD course in 2011, and in 2011 entrance exams, exactly 10 years back, the number of aspirants were close to 70,000. Okay, 70. And this year the anticipated number is somewhere between 2 lakhs and 2 lakhs 10,000. Okay, which shows that over this 10 years time, the number of aspirants going into the exam would be almost like 3 times. And I would also tell you that if you get this year, probably if you get a score of say 800 on 1200, that is going to change because we're going to having only 200 questions this time. Like going by stats last year when we had 300 questions. So we get 800 on 1200 to 700 on 1200. So in a span of say 100 marks, you probably might change over from a rank of around 2000 to maybe a rank of around 8000, 9000. So this is a very tightly contested exam. It's a very, very tightly contested exam. When you say that you have prepared meticulously, there are 10,000 others who have also prepared meticulously. And there is basically nothing to choose between these people. If you look at the people who have scored the 50th rank, 100th rank, the scores are very much different and they are having a score which is somewhere out of range. So we're not talking about them. But starting from somewhere around 500, then going up to say 7,000 to 8,000, there is absolutely nothing to choose from these people, between these people. So what really matters now is the diligence that you show sitting in the exam hall. Because when we went for the exam, it was more of a recall thing that we did. The exam is about recall. That means you have done the questions, then you recall that properly and you write. Now it is about utilizing the time in the exam hall properly. Because you're going to be facing a question which you haven't seen before. And most likely, you wouldn't have seen it to the ward also. And when you're confronted with such a question, which has its base in physiology, the stem in medicine, and the answer probably in pharmacology, You have to sit and read the question properly, eliminate the options, and then come to a most possible answer, which you even at that point in time may not be sure is right or wrong. So essentially, when you give the exam, if you talk to the toppers, at the end of the exam, they had absolutely no idea that they were going to be a topper. So what we can do is use our space at that point, properly think, and give the best possible explanation. And that can be given only by ruling out options and ruling out options.
So with that, we'll move on to our first question, Dr. Rakesh. And as Tarun already mentioned in this video, we are going to be focusing on the students who have at least had 8 to 9 months of a solid preparation at the minimum. So the one question which comes in the mind of students at this point of time is, do I need to revise my notes, or do I just need to keep solving question banks? So Dr. Rakesh, what is your take on this?
So going into the last 3 weeks before the exam, I think the most important thing that they need to do is to definitely give one exam per week. Okay, not more than that also, because that again will take time. This is to just get accustomed to the time, as well as to use your brain properly at that point in time, which is again not an easy ask. And in the meantime, to consistently be looking into the notes that you have studied and you have prepared, because it is those notes that are going to augur well for you in the upcoming exam, primarily because it is with that you will be expanding. Your basic points on a particular disease, for example, Wilson's disease, is pakka in sequence, means when you get a question, you will be at least able to say what is the probability that this answer is Wilson. If you don't have those points in sequence order in your mind, you will never be able to eliminate. And so elimination is the key to success. And that is what toppers are repeatedly saying now. And to eliminate your overall knowledge or your grounding is what is actually most important. So you have to have a very, very good grounding. You need to have very strong basics and be able to eliminate options and come to most possible answers. So in these few weeks before the examination, just keep revising your notes as much as possible, and write an exam per week, just to actually see whether you're able to finish the paper on time, whether you're able to go to and fro as far as the questions are concerned. Because many people, by the time they finish the paper once, it's time done already. That is not enough, because we need to be able to grade the questions into the ones which are the easiest, finish them off, and then come back to the questions which require a lot of reasoning.
There, just to summarize what you're saying is that you've basically told us two things. The strategy in examination is basically dependent on elimination. And that elimination relies on a good foundation of knowledge. And that is only going to come if you have revised your notes and concepts well. And just to get acquainted to the exam, solve one exam per week to sort of get into the rhythm and the timing in check. So I will take you upon that point on the strategy of answering the exam, which is very important this year, because last year we had 300 questions, but this year it has come down to 200 questions. And while last year we also knew the weightage, the probable weightage given to different subjects, this year we do not have that much clarity also. So as a student, when I'm going to the exam, would you suggest that I focus on certain subjects? Should it be the clinical subjects more?
See, going by the INI-CET exams which have been launched in 2020 and going by the last NEET that was held somewhere in January 2020, these exams have all been core clinical. So if you go by the last few exams that have been conducted by the board, even the foreign medical graduate exam has been at a very tough level, and they've all been very, very clinical. And having reduced the number of questions with the same time, I probably feel, going by simple logic, that the paper is going to be core clinical. That means that your onus has to be on your final year 4 subjects: medicine, surgery, gynecology, pediatrics, alongside with orthopedics. So it's a 5 subjects, and clubbing it that with anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and a bit of pathology. The subjects other than that generally have had very, very poor representation as far as the exam is concerned. When you revise the strategy, is very simple. Like when you study a topic like acute myeloid leukemia first, you are thinking about only acute myeloid leukemia. You're just thinking about how the disease is, what are the translocations, what are the positive prognostic factors, bad prognostic factors, how do you treat. But when you study second time, third time, how effectively you are able to link it to the other causes of pancytopenia, the other things that I can actually present there, how you rule out each one of them, why this is not this, why this is not that, etc., 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 is what then differentiates a champion player from a very average player. Because when you actually read through the notes, you can say, okay, PNH presents with pancytopenia. And it may also be given to the notes that AML presents with pancytopenia. But are AML and PNH related? In what way are they related, if at all? And what do you think when it is an acute setting? All this differentiates you from a very average player.
Basically, what I want to ask is, now since it is a 200 question paper with the same amount of time, you're likely to get a question which are going to be quite long, probably a 1-page question. So when you have one-page question and a 4 options to choose from, when you read the question from top to bottom, I always felt that it would be, you'll get lost in the information and you kind of fail to pick up the really important clues with which you can answer the question. So would it make a difference if you actually go from bottom to top, or just after seeing the question, then go from top to bottom again?
Strategies do differ between individual students, but this is something which we generally tend to encourage a lot in the offline class. We tend to ask the student to read the options first before even reading the question. Because we have had so many ECG questions, but if you look at the ECG, you may be able to say 10,000 things, but they may have asked for the most basic 4 options. You will be finding out a bundle branch block on the ECG, but they may be interested only in knowing whether there is a tachycardia or not. So finally, you looking out and searching out, finding out so many things on the ECG doesn't really matter with respect to those 4 marks. So primarily, always reading the question before reading the answers or the options before the question is what is generally encouraged in all the classes. There is no doubt on that. Because if you start reading the question, as you said, from scratch, then we are never going to ever land in the answer, because the details given in the question are 70% of the time waste details, which are of no value in finding out the eventual answer. So if you know the options, you can at least search. That's where I'm saying your linking, integration, correlation really does matter. Because when you are having 4 options, if you know those individual 4 options and you have an idea about those individual 4 options, when you start hearing that history itself, at least it will come to mind that this option doesn't fit or this option fits a bit more.
Now, when you're sitting in the exam hall and you start seeing the question paper, is there any order in which you have to answer the questions, or do you just go from question number 1 to question number 200?
And always see to it that there are going to be around 1/3 questions in any exam which are going to be straight pick one-liners. The earlier you actually finish them off, the more time you get. If you go by sequence order, question number 1, 2, 3, 4, if you have those last 20 questions which are the easiest, and because of paucity of time, you're not able to finish that, means then you're done and dusted. We have to actually be doing every simple question correct. The moment we actually make a simple mistake with respect to those questions, then we are nowhere in the race as such. Okay, so these questions have to be done first, and there is no point in going by question order 1, 2, 3, 4 and thinking that we will read a question, be able to get the answer and mark it. That will not happen. Even if you are the best student, even the topper's mother who got rank 3 was telling last time that even he, on seeing the paper, was able to answer only 125 questions. First time he scanned through, there were 300 questions in the paper, he could answer only 125. He was about sure that 125 are going to be right. Rest, there were 175 questions in the paper, which he answered by elimination, purely elimination. And finally ended up getting 225 correct and 75 wrong. And that took him to rank 3. So I think even if he can only do like that, then the average student definitely will be able to get only 100 questions right on seeing the paper. This time 200 questions means they may be able to answer 65 to 70 on seeing the paper. Nothing more than that. And you cannot expect that also. If in case it is not like that, then that means that the exam is too easy. But over the last 3 or 4 years, we've not had a paper like that. So it doesn't sound logical to anticipate a paper where things are going to be easy.
So I think just to again just sum up what we have discussed so far, which was a very important point that Tarun brought up, is that when you're going to the examination and you're seeing the exam paper, I think try to look at all the questions, try to answer the one-liners first, and then come to the ones which are sort of descriptive. And then in these descriptive questions, try to look at the answers first, so that when you're reading the questions, then you'll be sort of start trying to eliminate out and try to understand what really the question is looking for. I think very, very valuable points given by both of you. So Tarun, from your experience, how did you go about answering the questions?
I remember when I was writing the entrance, and I think it was with you only I discussed. So the final consensus was, you go through the paper, you answer if you know exactly. The first round, you answer without any doubts. The second round, you eliminate 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
The third round, you eliminate, it's actually 50-50 chance for you.
50-50 chance for you. And also have the sense to understand that few questions are going to be ambiguous, and if possible, leave them and save those 1 marks, which are going to be very crucial at the end. So if you've studied, you should also have the confidence to say that, okay, this is something which is beyond our syllabus. There are going to be 20-25 questions which are way beyond what we can even think.
I wanted to ask Dr. Rakesh, which is that when there is negative marking in place, how many questions should we leave? Is there a sort of a number that, you know, I cannot leave more than this question? Because let's say if I leave more than this number of questions, then I'm out of the race. So as a teacher for so many postgraduate exams and from personal experience, do you think that there is a number to be kept, or you just go by what is there on the exam day?
Now, if we go by how many questions the toppers have attempted in 2019 and 2020, maths toppers have attempted between 280 to 285 questions when it was a 300 exam. So 300 question exam. So if we go by that same strategy here, I think we should be attempting somewhere close to 185 to 190. Because the moment we go down, then again what happens is, if you're damn sure, even if you're damn sure with what you have written, still there is a chance that you can be wrong. Because these are the kind of papers where nobody can be sure that this is the perfect answer. And even when we actually hear the question, they themselves may not be able to recollect it properly. So when we hear the question also, we also may not be sure as to whether this is the answer or that is the answer. So in such a case, you have to definitely take a chance. You cannot leave, see, in a 300 paper, we say maximum you can leave 20 questions. So when it comes to a 200 exam paper, I would say maximum 15 questions, not more than that. But choosing those 15 questions to leave is very, very, very important. Which are the 15 questions that you are going to leave? You are going to leave those 15 questions wherein you are not able to eliminate two options. If you are able to eliminate two options, then you're giving yourself a 50% chance. It's a big chance. So you are leaving only those questions where you are not able to actually eliminate two options. If you are able to eliminate one option, of course you cannot write. And then if you are not able to eliminate anything and you don't know anything about the question, then also it's safe not to write. Don't go for wild, weird guesses, because even 1 mark does matter. It matters a lot. When it especially comes to 6,000, 7,000 range, 1 mark, 0.5 marks, 2 marks, etc. do make a lot of difference. So we should not be going for that.
Revise the question paper 3 to 4 times. And the game is about association and correlation now, and not about recall.
Yes, it is not about recall. Level-headedness that you show sitting in the exam hall really makes a lot of difference now. In contrast to the exam 10 years back, where you had to just prepare. When you sit in the exam hall, there was nothing that you needed to do. Just properly think and mark the right answer. Don't be too tensed and have tremors and mark somewhere else. That's what we used to say. Otherwise, if you prepared well, you are definitely going to get through. Here, even if you have prepared well, there is no guarantee that you are going to get through. It's about how well you apply that in the exam hall. Because the question will require you to relate, correlate, and integrate between so many different specialties which you have studied at different points in time. It may be very easy for a practicing person to answer these questions. It may seem very, very simple for him. But for a student who has not actually seen most of these things, for him to eliminate certain things and come to the answer is a challenge. And that is why we need solid studies.
The next question I would like to ask is, what is the role of grantors? You have grantors left, right, and center. So what is the, should we go ahead and do grantors left, right, center, or should we just limit it to 1 per week? How do we go about it? Should we give more emphasis on the grant test and less emphasis on the notes, or the other way around? What do you think?
So when you attend a class, and I am talking to you about possible scenarios in that particular disease. These are the possible scenarios. If you have been clinically little oriented at the time of your internship and you can just about relate it to everything, you're not seeing the clinical question, you will be able to answer. But majority of students, especially those students who have had very, very poor exposure as far as their undergraduate training is concerned, even though they read from the notes, in real parlance, when they see a question, they are not able to apply what they have studied because they have not been exposed to this at any level. So for such a student, it is imperative that he does exams. Because when he sees those clinical questions, that will actually make him think, okay, this is how that part is coming. So we basically have our own limitations in dealing with the class. In a class, you get maximum, say, 15 hours to 20 hours for a chapter. So inside that, you can't finish everything. So those points that we have discussed might come as questions. So those questions for you to pick up, if you're weak, then probably you have to do exams. But nearing up to the original exam, 1 per week is more than enough. Second point about exam is, of course, the time, because some people are dead slow. They get stuck at a question and they just keep on looking at that question again and again. And somehow they are perfectionists. They want to get it done and then move on. Those things will never work. And third, to basically know where you stand, because most of the marrow DDs, etc., are written by 75 to 80,000 students plus. So in a way, it can help you know where you stand, but you shouldn't be taking it in a wrong sense and get dejected completely at the end of it and say that I don't stand any chance, because each paper is different. Toppers are always toppers, but then there are lots of seats down. So that's what you have to be focusing on. Toppers, you are never going to beat toppers. That is not going to happen. Okay, he's at some other level. We are not competing with him. We are not competing with the first 100. The first 100 is already set. 1 may become 2, 2 may become 1, 3 may become 5. Only small, small changes can happen there. But after that, there is a lot of space, a lot of room. That is where these guys have to actually enter. But there, the margin is too little.
I think the situation that you mentioned is like the current Formula One field where Mercedes and Red Bull are completely 1 and 2. And then down below you have the midfield where everyone is trying to fight for that 0.1, 0.2 of a second.
Exactly. And how much ever we try, we cannot be 1 and 2. So that also we need to understand. We need not press to become 1 and 2. Because that will further surmount on the stress that we have in our system. We can never be 1 and 2 also. Let them be 1 and 2 and let them do whatever they want. We just need to get a seat and push our career forward. So the more we start comparing ourselves with the topper, we are actually pushing ourselves more and more into trouble.
And the one important aspect that is sort of not discussed much is the mental or the psychological aspect. You touched upon it briefly that maybe 10 years back when Tarun and you were writing the exam, it was more of a recall based. You just have to be calm in the exam, make sure that you're right, marking it to the right answer. Coming to the mental aspect in these 3 weeks to 1 month, what should the preparation be of a student mentally, both during the preparation and in the exam? Tarun, if I'll start off with you first, how different is it mentally when you approach the exam in the last 3 weeks?
It's a very, very difficult exam. And for everybody that is concerned, it is the most important exam of their life. Now, forget about the fact that after this, every exam will become the most important exam of your life. But as of now, this is the most important exam of your life. And you know it. And you know that you've just got like 2 hours or 3 hours to prove yourself. So the stress that is involved is quite unbelievably huge on your shoulders. So, but how to face it is a different story, and everybody has a different way of coping up with things. But in a sense, what I could say is everybody is doing just fine. Don't compare with the others. All you have to do is get your circadian rhythm proper. Another word of advice I want to give is no one dies with a lack of sleep of 1 day or 2 days. So don't get scared that you're not going to sleep on the day of exam, and that is going to affect your performance. So no, a day of not sleeping is not going to affect anybody's performance. But if you feel that it is going to affect your performance, yes, that's a different story altogether. What about you, Rakesh? What do you think? How to mentally
Actually,
prepare?
like, that is what one of our students were also saying. Like there are so many entrance exams, but this is like the rate limiting enzyme, no rate limiting exam. So this is the rate limiting exam primarily because this is the student's first opportunity and probably his last opportunity to come into mainstream medicine. Because if he gets a good rank over here and he gets into a good college or a top college in the country, then he's into mainstream medicine, whichever subject it is. If he can't get into mainstream medicine, then coming back at the later stage may actually be difficult. And that probably is the one that adds on to a lot of stress. The point which everyone has to, maybe most of the students also keep telling us is, they are all basically trying to do a lot of mug up in this last 3 or 4 weeks. The strategy was conceptual learning in the beginning, but now that they have studied their concepts to get the facts and sequence, they're trying to do mug up. So when they do mug up in the final 3 or 4 weeks, the more you mug up, the more you remember. And the more you actually read leading up to the exam, the better it is. So going by what the toppers have done, if you study 15 hours, that's better. If you can study 16, that is even better. If you can study 18, that is even better. Because you are always going to remember what you have studied in the 1 or 2 weeks leading up to the exam, and you cannot forget that. The problem is few of the people lose their confidence and they get a feeling that whatever said and now the game is lost, and they probably don't read anything in the last 2 weeks prior to the exam, and that is so bad because then you're out of the race again. Because everything, every point that you read, even on the day of the exam morning, still counts. Because that can be an MCQ and that can change everything. So don't ever lose hope. Just keep continuously learning. Don't read anything new. That is the only thing right now. Don't just attempt on reading anything new. What you have studied, you can definitely build on. That's it. And you can just revise. And don't unnecessarily give exams in the last 3 or 4 days before the exam, original exam, because that can again affect your confidence. So don't do that. Just keep reading, just keep reading. That's more than enough.
I think some very, very important points brought about you there, which is try to read as much as possible your notes in that previous 2 weeks of exam, because ultimately that is what you're going to remember the best. But at the same time, don't waste time remembering anything new and stop attempting exams 3 to 4 days before the main exam so that it doesn't affect you mentally. If you had to just give 3 take-home points for them to follow in these 3 weeks, what would that be?
Yeah, I think the first thing is temperament. Temperament is so very crucial here. and understand that everybody is going through the same stage and nobody is actually superior to the other, except for maybe those 100 students at the top. Everybody is at the same level. So you just remember that you are having an equal chance. And second, on seeing the paper in the exam hall for the first time, don't unnecessarily feel that you're not going to do it, because you may actually get a little terrified on seeing the paper. That's very, very natural, because the paper is going to be tough. We are also expecting that. Even if a trained person is going to go and sit and write the exam, he's also not going to be able to answer most of the questions. So that's also perfectly normal. So don't be actually taken back by the fact that the paper is going to be tough. Consider that it is normal, and consider it's going to be normal for everyone. So just take it in that way. And most importantly, remember that there is a lot of luck involved in this exam, and just pray very hard and pray very well, so that luck actually favors you. And even if something goes wrong here or there, remember that there is something that we can't buy, and that is luck. So luck has to favor us, and we really can't do anything for that. There are people who have been extraordinarily lucky during the exam day. There have been people who have been grossly unfortunate also. So that is also there. So just leave that element of luck to God, and try and study as much as you can, and don't make silly mistakes sitting in the exam hall. Be very sensible, read again, and then be marking questions. So don't unnecessarily miss out on those simple questions, and hope that things go according to plan.
From my side, apart from him, he's covered everything. I just want to tell one thing: don't lose sleep over sleep. That is the only thing I am telling. Sleep well, don't sleep well, doesn't matter. It's not going to affect your performance on that day. It is just about.
Don't take any drug, especially anxiolytics or beta blockers, etc. If you have not had the experience of taking it before. If you had experience of taking it before, it is okay, you can manage. But you're just like kind of too stressed out, and somebody is advising you to take something and you have not used it before, you are going to run into big time trouble. Please don't do that.
Never do that.
Right. So as they say, yalla okay, tension yake, which means everything is fine. Why take tension? Thank you both so much for taking out your precious time and joining us for this very special episode. With that, we come to the end of this episode. If you did like this episode, please do subscribe to our channel, Treat, the online channel for doctors on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and do visit our website, www.alterdoctor.in. Believe in yourself, believe in your hard work, believe in your preparation, and you will definitely be able to chase your dreams. Here's wishing all the PG aspirants on behalf of Team Treat the very best of luck for the upcoming NEET PG exams. Until next episode, this is your host, Dr. Nitin Yashas, signing off.